So we mentioned what the Cleveland Browns might do at quarterback, or excuse me, at the number 2 pick, and the feeling is they're going to go with Travis Hunter. That's at least what the speculation is. And the question then becomes, well, what's the long-term plan at quarterback? Well, listen, Andrew Berry, the GM there, says it's a little too early to tell whether or not Deshaun Watson can play in 2025. I'd like to offer this up. Some would argue it's debatable whether or not he's played yet for the organization based on what has happened, suspensions, performance, et cetera. But nonetheless, now they've got a quarterback room that's got Joe Flacco and Kenny Pickett. Joe Flacco was brought back. He won Comeback Player of the Year a couple of years ago. And so the discussion was being had with the fan in Cleveland. He was talking with Ken Carman and Anthony Lima about the development of quarterbacks in the NFL and had this to say.
I do think it's important for young quarterbacks to be able to learn. You don't want to put a young quarterback in a football game before he's actually ready because, you know, there's just so many things in the cycle in this league these days is just so quick. You want these guys to be ready, and I do think there's huge advantages to being able to sit back and make sure you get and gain that confidence and really learn the game and get the team surrounded in a good way so that you can go out there and have success. And I think that stuff happens naturally through like competition in different rooms. And, you know, like the more competition you have and the more people you have competing, the more conversations come up and the more people learn. I think that's true in not just in sports, but in every environment. You want good people in a room together that can push each other, and then you'll get the most out of everybody.
So that was Joe Flacco talking with the fan in Cleveland about the development of quarterbacks there. I mean,
well, yeah, he's 40 years old now, or that's what it sounds like. I mean, when you played for as long as he has, 17 years, it's going to come off that way. And I think, look, going back to his experience, he was a guy who started, as a rookie, and they had a lot of team success. He was good as a rookie. He continually got better and better and better. But, when you go back and look at the course of his career, he had continually developed into the position after his first couple years to really be a guy that they could rely on, in particular in the clutch. And I think what he probably learned from his looking back at his rookie year and even just playing for as long as he played is, and this kind of happens, I think, to all of us as fathers. Like you look at your child or you look at younger generations and you're like, oh, I remember going through that. Like, this is probably what they don't know, or this is what they need to know in order to be able to do this the right way or be successful. And now, again, playing as long as he has, he's seeing all that in real time as he's, had to kind of come in and pinch hit, if you will, for a lot of, younger guys. His stint in Cleveland back in 2023, a couple of years ago, and even last year for Anthony Richardson. And I think he's very aware of how different things are now, for quarterbacks coming into the league, where they draft them, they play them, and they rinse them out, right? They don't get any time to really sit, watch, and learn unless you're a part of an organization that tries to do it right, or if you've got a Hall of Fame guy sitting there in front of them, or at least a Pro Bowl caliber guy like an Alex Smith, or in the case of Green Bay, Aaron Rodgers, and then Jordan Love. So that's really few and far between, right? Most teams are hoping they could find a guy that's going to be a Pro Bowl caliber quarterback, let alone a Hall of Famer. And so I think his words are wise in the sense of probably everything he's experienced as a starter, as a backup, as a guy who, look, he's made a ton of money at this point in time in his career. He's won a Super Bowl. He's continually been able to prove that he can still do it. And so he doesn't need to. I think there's a desire of want to, and at the same time, being able to be a guy he's got 5 kids. He's a family man, so he probably sees it from a lot different perspective than a lot of guys who play the position, especially a lot of the young guys.
Dang, 5 kids. He can sling that pill, huh? He's a quarterback on and off.
I think he also said it was kind of nice to get away from his kids for a little bit. He was kind of half joking, but I think he just wanted a break.
I think it's a wise move to bring in Flacco for one reason and one reason alone. We could work from there, in my estimation. It's because you have someone that can stabilize an unstable environment as the quarterback. I think the Deshaun Watson conversation has created so much confusion, so much, is it conflict of how you want to feel about the situation? Is it, what's next for the situation? There's so much surrounding Deshaun Watson that has been an agent of deterioration for the Cleveland Browns. To bring a rookie into that equation, whether they're prepared for it mentally, emotionally, physically to be able to handle it or not, it's really an unfair task and weight to put on the shoulders of a newly acquired, a newly hired talent for that position for your team. So, and knowing that element is still there. Like, whoever goes in has to accept the fact that Deshaun Watson still has to be a part of the conversation in terms of whose team is this at that position. That would be the first thing that I would say would be the wisest move in bringing in a quarterback would be to bring in a guy like Joe Flacco, who things like that are not going to bother him. He's already clearly shown you that it's not going to bother him. He's on borrowed time anyway. He's at the end of his career, and anything that he gets from this moment on is he's playing with house money. So he's going to go in there. He's familiar with the front office. He's familiar with guys that are in the locker room, and he's going to be a positive force to the players that are in there and the other people that are around, including the fan base. He's a positive asset to add to your team and to add to your room. And, hey, if Pickett proves out then and is able to learn some things from Flacco during this time, and you get a bonus and Pickett developing, if you take a draft pick somewhere, they got a few. They got the 33rd pick in the second round. So that's a pretty good position to be in, to either be able to move up maybe a little bit in the second round or sit there and somebody's going to possibly fall to you at that 33rd pick. I think that, for what it's worth, and you may not hear me say this often, I think Cleveland played this particular situation the right way in terms of a quarterback that can handle what's going on right now in Cleveland.
When he talks about like developing young quarterbacks and how teams go about it or how they should go about it, it still blows my mind that, and I know it's not an exact science and every player is different and all that, but it still blows my mind that you draft a guy as almost he's an investment. And I don't know a whole hell of a lot about investing, but I do know that it does take some time. And you don't want to manipulate your investment too soon, because you got to let it grow a little bit. You got to let it. And Joe Flacco's point was like, man, I think we got to be a little bit more patient, but nowadays they're just not. They want to know now. All right, can you play now? Well, who the hell knows? Like, it could be situation, it could be time, it could be another scenario altogether. Alex Smith took years before he developed. He went through like 7 coaches or offensive coordinators, whatever it was, and finally he found something. Had they pulled the rug out early on, he would have never developed into a guy that, brought Kansas City to where they were before Patrick Mahomes took over and got him over the hump. You look at Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield. Man, if you would have talked to the Browns back then, the book was written on Baker Mayfield, and yet for some reason it just feels like, no, we got to know now. We need an answer now. It's an investment, but no, we got to have some answers. We got to have some returns
do what
now.
You did with Deshaun Watson.
I feel
like Baker Mayfield might have done something. He flirted with the wrong person or something, man.
And I think Rodgers,
the wrong person. Somebody he upset somebody.
I think Rodgers, has kind of made this point before to where, like, man, there's got to be some trust, like some, hey, look, we are trusting you're making the decision and we're trusting this pick at this time, and let's let it grow. Instead, it's like, no, he can't play. He's got to go. Like, and there's so many examples of that, and I don't get why in a business like the NFL, where you are dependent on everybody around you to be successful, why it all comes down to, no, that guy can't play. Well, no, like you've got to produce the environment for him to play, and that seems to be lost in so many situations.
Well, I keep going back to, too, how different the game is at the NFL level from the college level. And I hope people understand this, that RPOs, they're not as capable or impactful at the NFL level because the rule that you could only have an ineligible lineman, for example, downfield only a yard. In college and high school, it's 3. And honestly, it's more like 3.5 because it's so hard for officials to be able to see it at that point in the play. I mean, when you picture or think about an offensive lineman moving 3 yards downfield, that's a couple seconds into the play, right? He's moving through a gigantic human being across from him. Even if he's uncovered and moving up to the next level, he's still trying to get a sense for where that linebacker is going to be. Because don't get it twisted, it is a run play, all right? There's different types of pass protections. There's pass pro, there's run action pro, where it's a pass play. The linemen know not to go downfield, but they are doing their best to block it like it's a run. And so their responsibilities in regards to pressure are off. They don't adjust anything they're doing. They are relying on the fake in a run action pass protection to be able to take care of whatever is going on. And pre-snap, if the quarterback sees something that he's like, this is a disaster, you get out of it, right? You audible out of it. But it's entirely different with an RPO. It is a run play. That quarterback has the opportunity to hand that football off. High school, college level, even at the NFL level, the way it's taught. And then you're triggering or you're reading off one player on defense. And so the game has become so simplified at the high school to college level to where you have one of two choices. You're either keeping it and you're going to throw, depending on what that defender does, if he steps up to stop the run, or if he stays back in coverage, you're going to hand the football off. And honestly, RPOs have replaced what used to be quick game, the 3-step game, where even in 3-step drop, it sounds somewhat simple, right? 1, 2, 3, you're throwing the football. You're not really able to hitch up in the pocket because you're not getting any depth. You still had to read coverage. Even in a 3-step game, you had a 1 high or 2 high look, meaning if there was one safety in the middle of the field, you're working to your left. If there's 2 high safeties, right, or split safety look, you're working to your right. Or there could be a 3-by-1 set where you're checking your backside singled up route. If you like it, you take it. If not, you're probably working a quick progression to the other side. So that used to be like the simplest form of passing back when I was young, back when a lot of quarterbacks were growing up through an era and a time where you used to play under center a little bit more. Or even if you were in shotgun, that was part of the quick game. The RPO game has essentially replaced that because you get the ability to put the defense in conflict much more. Because there's that run-pass conflict of reading that overhang defender or whatever defender it is to decide if you want to throw or run the football. And if you think about what 3-step passing game was, it was like a glorified handoff. It was a higher percentage pass that you're going to be able to complete and not get a big gain, but move the sticks or at least get enough of a gain where it puts you in third and manageable. Or you're back on track if you happen to take a loss on first down, and so you're back in third and manageable, right? In those instances. So, to me, the subtle differences in how the game is taught at high school to college and now to the NFL is one of those things that it takes time, and you're making these decisions in seconds. 1,000, 2,000, ball's got to be out. And you've got all these other things you have to be worried about. It's not really that way at a lot of the colleges, even with some of the NFL, coaches that are down at that level, or even what they're asking them, what they're doing. And it's why the NFL has had to adapt a lot of their offensive scheme to what these quarterbacks are accustomed to doing, because they don't have the time to develop, and no one has the patience anymore to see if they can develop into being that guy. They have to be able to show it in their rookie year, otherwise everyone throws them to the wayside.
It's weird, man. It's unfortunate for these guys that just get lumped in. Like, think about Kenny Pickett. What's he on, his third team?
Third team.
He just got drafted.
He just got traded.
Like, he's been traded twice. He's on his third team. Like, he just got into the league like not that long ago. We were at that draft in Vegas when he was selected, and just the book's apparently already written.